Sup nerds, welcome back to the channel. I am All Things Nerdy, and we are back in Hot Dogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades for the 5th and final episode. So I wanted to keep this series short, for sure, because there's a lot of mechanics and a lot of content in this game, and I really wanted to move on to not only other content, but also towards other games. That said, my latest series is going to be in the top right. Go ahead, give it a click. So for those of you who are a little bit more observant, we aren't actually in Take and Hold right now. That's up there. We're at the main menu. We are taking a look at all of the other scenarios and games and whatnot, all of the content I was previously mentioning. And the main reason that I'm bringing that up is because just like any sport, any athlete will confirm that you can get better at the game by playing the game, but you also need resistance training. Playing around with other weapons that you wouldn't necessarily play around with anyway, or that you would normally not ever get to look at in the normal Take and Hold. That said, should have said this in the first episode, sampler platter, that's probably going to be the first go-to. That's going to have your shooting range, it's going to explain all the controls, you're going to play around with all the explosives. It's actually hours of content just playing around in that. It's fantastic, great place to start. From there, I would probably move to the right over here. One of these, likely, the ones that are bobbing up and down. Those are going to be ranges where you can spawn new guns and play around and figure out how they work before you move on to any of the other game modes where they will randomly spawn, just so you're not fumbling around and trying to figure it out as you go. Indoor range is probably your best bet after that, I would recommend. And then moving on to sniper range for those longer engagements. You're going to have more static targets at the friendly 45. That's just what I'm recommending. Down here are also some other good options. The Gunnasium is going to have some pretty interesting movement work. It's interesting. I wouldn't spend too long in there. It gives me a headache. It'll probably give you a headache as well. And then you have the breaching prototype, which is also interesting. You can find some mods as well that will offer similar scenarios where you enter a room, you can clear it, and you can check out your score at the end. After the sandbox, I would move over here to Games and Holiday. The Meat Miss and the Arcade Proto is arguably a little bit outdated, but Worst World is a little bit better. These guys are interesting, but they are a scenario where you can play around and spend a couple hours when you're trying to take a break from Take and Hold. The likelihood that you'll actually find a Team Fortress 2 gun in Take and Hold is very slim, but if you want to play around with moving targets over static targets and play in a different game mode, that's a good option. You get to spawn in with all of the other classes from the traditional Team Fortress 2 and bounce around. It's really fun. Boomski, interestingly, is actually the best way for you to understand how grenades work, because the grenade standard, whenever you open up the menu, don't actually say the time, or the fuse time, how big the explosion is, what their traditional use is. Meat Grinder was just a Halloween special. Haven't played through this, don't really plan on, but that's fun. Now, MEAT's, Modular Environment Adaptive Target Simulation, is actually a fantastic way to, while not playing Take and Hold, get really good at this game, because it's putting you through the stresses of, your reflexes, how far you can aim, forces you to get used to using your entire body to actually shoot. It's a whole lot of fun. Go ahead and check it out. Hours and hours of content. You're just slowly trying to get better and get a higher score, just like Take and Hold. Now, the one scenario that I didn't really talk about is the Proving Ground. Anton, the developer, uses this a lot for demonstrating all of the new toys that he's using, as well as giving examples and demonstrations of how they would work. Now, one of the tools that Anton graciously gifted to us is this handy dandy spawner here. This is used to spawn in enemies, control them, give them commands, a whole list of other things. So we're going to use it to really quickly take a look at the enemies that we will be fighting and what their weak points are, what their armaments are, only just briefly. I can do an entire episode on this, but I'm not going to. So obviously, if you see orange, you shoot. You, that's an unarmored spot. It's that seems pretty easy. Now, of course, you're gonna have to play through all the different characters in order to better understand what. Sorry, that one really creeps me out. Now, of course, you're gonna want to have to play through all the characters in order to better understand where their armor is, what kind of weapons that they carry, how long it takes to reload, and then of course, their armament and whether or not you can actually get rid of it. For instance, something that I didn't find out until I was actually playing through is that the hats that the Desperados wear in the Cowboy Calico character can block out certain caliber weapons. For example, the little 22 LR it'll block one or two of those. Apparently can block a rifle round. I did not know that. That or I'm just missing its hitbox. No, I was just missing its hitbox. Ignore that part.
No hard feelings.
Thank you. I could do an entire episode on all of the different enemies and how to best deal with them and all this other fun stuff. But I feel that is something that is best experienced throughout the game. Just a quick rundown: Cowboy Calico, Flaccid Steak, and the Well Done Free Meat. So, enemies aside, one of the other wonderful additions to this tool is the ability to take a look at encryptions. So these are the standard that we've already seen in the previous 4 episodes. We are taking a look at the static, which I have found out after the fact. You can break if you hit. I was lied to. In my as I was leading through the literature, and by that I mean Reddit, I didn't think that you could hit it, but that makes sense because if you wanted to do melee, you could do it that way. But the static, you could just go ahead and shoot or hit. Moving on to this, this is the hardened. It is just a static node with some extra bits on it. It rewards you for having armor penetration by the time it comes out. However, if you do not have the highest penetrating round necessary to break it, you can just kind of shoot the center, and that's it. I'm not quite sure how much health or what the proper penetration is, but considering that this is a rifle caliber, it would have broken it regardless. And onto the swarm. These guys, we've talked about it. You need a shotgun or a higher volume fire just to make life easy. But if you wanted to shoot single shot, just make sure that you have a higher capacity, just in case you miss. Otherwise, you're not going to have a great time. Something you don't want a shotgun for is the recursive. This is best experienced with your single shot, your pistols and whatnot. If you were to shoot the end, or if you were to shoot the normal red orb, it will start spawning more. Just hit the red blocks and you are A-okay. Now on to the encryptions that we may not have seen yet. We're looking at the stealth encryptions. These guys will just blink for a little bit. They do not spawn exactly where the blocky clouds appear at the beginning of a hole. They will spawn nearby, but not directly on or around where they say they're going to be. No other defensive, just shoot, and you're done. Now as for the agile, just gonna get ready. These little guys will bounce around. We've seen them before. Something that I did not know, and I found out after the fact, is the idea of suppression. It will start to slow down even more if it is being shot at. Now, of course, yes, the easiest way to get rid of them is via a high rate of fire, just because you don't want to be sitting there going, bip, bip. That's not fun. You want just a little spray and pray, get rid of it, move on with your life. Now, of course, having a bunch of them isn't fun either. If you are able to get them in the same sort of area, you can just kind of suppress them as they go. Great. Now, those were all of the old ones that we have already seen or have only seen a little bit. One thing that we have not quite gotten to in the previous 4 episodes was getting to hold 5 and seeing the old regenerative. Anton went ahead and added, or rather modified, the regenerative encryption to, instead of being a single node with it branching out and you have to shoot them, the main way that it works is Each of these blocks are actually not that hard to hit. They don't have a lot of health. You don't need to shoot them a bunch. But what does happen is when you do shoot one, it'll just go straight through. And then somewhere between 3 and 10 seconds or whatever, it will slowly regenerate. Some of them quicker than others. There you go. And then they'll start slowly petering through. This is something you want a high magazine. You want a high cap weapon for this. Of course, this isn't going to be spawning until 5th hold, so by then you should have an LMG, assault rifle with a high capacity, battle rifle that will be able to hit multiple targets, explosives, any number of things that would be able to help you take down this. If you just had a 6-shooter, it would be almost impossible. I'm probably going to try it at some point, but not right now. So again, I'm going to click this to full auto and just give you a little show. There you go. That's it. Now that did look easy. However, in previous recordings, because I messed up the audio initially, in previous recordings I did have a 30-round magazine. Reloading while trying to take that down makes it almost impossible to finish it. You need something over 30 rounds or some variations of explosives. All right, changes and old ones done. Let's look at some new ones. This is the polymorphic. Yeah, this is a combination of the recursive and the agile. I hope that we get these in larger packs in numbers in the same way that the agile is. As if I just saw this while having to deal with a firefight, it wouldn't be as difficult. And again, it acts as a recursive index, so we would want to focus on the red ones anyway. There's really nothing that's stopping us from just focusing on it. As opposed to agile, which is very small, where you'd have to use a lot of your time to try and hit it. I feel as though the polymorphic would be easier to deal with a larger set of enemies, regardless of how many there are. Also, Anton, if you are watching this, don't make it any harder. I'm just a wee babby. I like things to be fun, not necessarily extremely difficult. Speaking of challenging, this is a nice kind of combination. This is the cascading encryption. I would imagine this is going to be some variation of a boss as well. The idea is that, well, I'll just show you. And breaks apart. So now all of these get broken up and then start wibble wobbling around. I would imagine that when these start coming into the base game, they might be doing some decent amount of damage, as we don't actually have an encryption that does damage back. Or do they do damage? Let's take a look. Well, none of them is hitting me, so we would not know. Anyway, I do kind of like this guy. It is very easy to deal with, and while still being able to manage a large crowd of Sosigs, I think that I would be able to handle this as it's starting to bounce around, especially since it'll bounce out and smack everything else in the area. The one that is hard to deal with is this guy, the orthogonal. Yeah, sort of like just the D8 of death with death lasers and death, and it's a boss. So the idea is that yes, once you get a handle on where it's moving and how it's moving, it's actually not that bad. The problem is you have to finagle yourself into an area where you can hit all of its sides while still avoiding the laser, because it actually moves slightly quicker than you. Terrifying. Anyway, it is, like I said, it is some variation of a recursive, as we can see. That blue space in the center, it does act as a recursive. Encryption. So I'm just going to go ahead and see if I can get rid of it. because... Oh. Ah! See? That just quick little thing was like 80. 80? 800. Which one am I missing? Where am I missing? I don't even have Sosigs chasing after me, and I'm already having trouble with this guy. Please no. And yes, you do slowly make your life harder as you continually miss. Like I am doing. Alright, we should be down to 1. Just on the other side. If you could lift up. If you could lift up. Please lift up. That's him. Nope, I missed one. Ah, come on. Ow. Wonderful. So, of course, I just went through all that trouble explaining multiple different encryptions, and then, sure enough, hours after I recorded all of that, I was halfway through editing, and he went ahead and did another update. So we're just going to go ahead and mostly forget about what we just talked about. So from what I could see and what he was talking about, the polymorphic, the agile slash recursive kind of bounces around. That one stays the same. However, it looks like our regenerative is a little bit more manageable. It's smaller. It does have a smaller profile. It functions about the same when it comes to bullet dynamics. However, it starts from the inside and then grows outward. Very simple change, but I think it actually adds a little bit to it. It's quicker as well. So the same things apply. Full auto is best. Gonna do that for a little bit. See what happens. It's very pretty. I will say that as well. Yeah, there you go. So that's regenerative. The cascading looks a little bit different as well. He was mentioning... Gosh. Darn it. The cascading looks a little bit different as well. It appears... Hello? There we go. They're a little less wibbly by the looks of it. About as easy as well. Big change that I'm really happy to see is the orthogonal got rid of its recursive part. It now spins. This seems a little bit more manageable. It does have a little bit more of a spray and pray element, which is a little bit easier. However, that spin is really going to mess with you. I'm unsure if it still follows the same pattern. It does look to right side. Yeah, it seems to follow about the same pattern when it comes to the spins as well. So, I mean, if we can judge what's about to happen still, that's kind of the biggest key when fighting this thing. Nice. So that was just the quick changes on the encryption. Everything else is the same. Everything I was talking about with, you know, the swarms and the statics, all that fun stuff, all that is still the same. Something I wanted to talk about real quick as well is the update to damage. This applies to all Sosigs. I have the new operators in front of me just because I wanted to talk about him, and they look very cool. The addition of concussive damage was something that the community has talked about for a little bit, which is the idea that, yeah, if you get hit, even if it doesn't penetrate or hit any, you know, of the important bits that are inside of you, it's still going to hurt. The idea of concussive damage kind of works like this. If I was to shoot him, he kind of feels it a little bit. Of course, this is still Kevlar. Even in the helmet, he gets a little confused. He gets stunned. He gets dazed. Now I'm sure it has something to do with the round as well. This being a 9mm probably isn't going to stun as much as a higher round that still doesn't penetrate his helmet. We'll take a look at this as well. If this being a rifle round shouldn't penetrate this, he still gets stunned for a decent amount of time, about as much as a 9mm to this. However, if I was to shoot him with this, he is quite dead now. He is a cadaver. No, you are dead. Stay dead. Rifle round, stuns, blah blah blah. Now that's going to affect accuracy. It's going to affect his ability to react to us running around. About as good as a flashbang, as far as I'm concerned. However, it doesn't appear that they do the little, flop to the ground and scurry along trying to figure out where they are. That. Something else that was added to all Sosigs, I'm afraid that I didn't check with him, is the mask that the Sosigs wear now actually have the same suppression idea. They still get stunned. You don't just immediately kill the heavy if you shoot him, but it's still everyone has the same kind of visor effect. I no longer need you. Thank you very much for your service. Now, this guy has a little bit of a change as well. As I said before, we can't just shoot between the eyes and expect him to go down. However, the Kevlar on the back kind of got reduced. You can see that it is kind of pushed to the back, and it actually has a smaller bullet penetration. He definitely feels it. Definitely feels it. 9mm still does not work. Suppression. Oh. I think that was just a faulty round. If we weren't taking hold and he was confused, you can now just kind of run up to them, grab them, and then do the whole head pull thing. That is just a thing that all taken hold Sosigs have. If they are suppressed or confused, rather, you can just tear their heads off if you wanted. Maybe that's just for the operators. I'm not too sure. Also, their guns are really cool. Very accurate. It actually also has a sight. But that's pretty much the basics of this game, of Taken Hold specifically. There's a lot to do in this game, and a lot of different ideas that I have rolling around in my head that I'm really excited for. I just wanted to do this video beforehand so that I can actually go through and start talking about all of these mechanics and all of the gameplay that I wanted to do without having to explain myself 9 different times along the way. Thank you all so much for watching the series all the way through. If you like the video, go ahead and like it, save it, refer back to it as much as you can. I'm open for suggestions down in the comments of what to do next. And then somewhere on the screen, there's going to be a splatter of different things here or there that you can go ahead and watch from here. But that's all that I have for you all right now. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, stay nerdy.